Hello everybody, how's it going? Welcome back to Teens Read. Sorry I have been a little bit sporadic about when I'm uploading my videos. It's just gotten to the point where I'm out of books that I've read previously. So now I'm having to read a book series every week. Usually I can knock out at least one book series in a week, but, if it's a 9-book series or something, I can't. So today I'm going to be talking about this book series called The Slime Dungeon. And it's actually 2-book series. That the first book is on Kindle Unlimited for the first series, and then there's like a sequel to that series. I started reading the sequel to this series like a long time ago, but just revisited it because it's a really good book. Unfortunately, though, the prequel or the main series is only one of the books is on Kindle Unlimited. So I've only read the first book in the regular series, and then I've read both of the books in the sequel series. So Slime Dungeon, it's basically another Dungeon Core book. I'm currently very into them. And this one is this dungeon core named Doc ends up in the world, and he has a dungeon pixie named Claire, and basically she helps teach him, how to be a dungeon, and it's pretty normal stuff at first, but this type of dungeon is different from most of the others I read, because you start off by choosing a race, and Doc chose slime. And it's very rare for there to be a slime dungeon. So he's pretty much one of a kind, and they never get powerful, because slimes, though they have powerful evolutionary capabilities, can't really, they're not intelligent. So basically, throughout the first book, he meets different people, saves people's lives, kills people. I'll not go into too much detail, otherwise I'll give stuff away. But the sequel series is really the series that I'm interested in, because he basically teleports to a new place and ends up having to create a natural dungeon, which basically means there's no adventurers or humans going into the dungeon to provide him with energy. So he has to lure animals in, but he creates an entire ecosystem inside of himself. And so he has the plant slimes guarding their gardens, and he has the gray slimes, which are basically the warrior slimes. They have their own city. And so there's all sorts of different types of slimes. And in the sequel, which is the thing that I find really interesting, is that basically he just puts them all there, and they have a war against each other. And so basically it's just each of the factions ambushing each other and trying to kill each other and steal from each other. And each of them has this, little altar type thing where they can bring mana or mana-infused items, which basically allows them to create more of themselves. So the writer creates an incredibly cool, ecosystem and whole system as to how the slimes are doing, and what they're doing, and the strengths and weaknesses of each of the different slimes. And so there's the gray slimes and the magic slimes on one side, and then there's the bug slimes on another side, and then there's the mimic slimes, and then there's the furry slimes, and there's just all sorts of different slimes. And then there's also outside creatures. There's the forest lion, who kind of becomes a slime creature by eating slime a lot, but he isn't directly under Doc's influence. So basically he adds in kind of like a variable, and it's really cool what they do with it. So some of the characters that I really like are there aren't that many characters, because again, it's a dungeon. He only knows 5 people. But some of my favorite characters are Doc, of course. He's the dungeon crystal, and he creates all of these experiments and stuff, and it's really cool. And then I like Adantine or something. I don't really know how to pronounce her name. But she's like a former princess, but she became a slime, and she used to be more powerful, but then she got her powers taken away. And then she learned about her human heritage, and so she remembered all of her human training. But the thing is, she has to go through slime training because, again, she's now a slime. So, you can't fight effectively as a human when you're a slime. Because slimes can have as many tentacles as they want. They could swing around 30 swords. Although it's hard to control 30 swords unless you're very powerful. Or 30 limbs. But yeah, she basically learns how to use her powers and kind of has to forget about her human training. Which I think is really fascinating. And then Rowan. So Rowan's he's a former prince that got turned into a slime. And I don't actually know his entire story because he came in like one of the other books in the first series that I didn't get the chance to read. But apparently he came from a 500-year-old undead dungeon thing. I don't know. But it's really like he's a really interesting character because he's got an interesting mix of like self-loathing and then disliking Doc for what he is putting Rowan through, and then disliking himself for disliking Doc, and it's just he's a really interesting, complicated character that I really like his kind of character dynamics, I guess. So yeah, those are my top 3 characters. Again, I'm only going with 3 because, again, there's only like 4 people in the entire book series that he really knows. So, yeah. Oh yeah, and then some of the things that I really liked is, again, how he created an entire ecosystem and they started warring, and then the author had them start getting, like, personalities, and they started developing strengths and weaknesses and feuds and alliances, and it's really cool to watch how the Slime Dungeon progresses. One of the very few things that I don't like about this book series is how, so the author makes Doc, he basically says that Doc knows everything within his dungeon, but then there's so many times that people take Doc by surprise from within his dungeon. And it really annoys me. I feel like he should either be a omniscient, knowing everything in his dungeon, or he should only know certain things, rather than, they say he knows a lot of things, but he actually doesn't know everything, and I just find it rather confusing and annoying. But yeah. So there's the things I like and then dislike about the Slime Dungeon. It's a really good book series overall. I would really suggest it. It's really incredible what he did with it. Yep.